Hi, welcome back to Wild Speculations. I'm Daniel, flying solo tonight, and running a little behind because water main broke and water shut off to my apartment, so dealing with some ancillary stuff about that. Anyway, tonight we're going to talk about Critical Role Campaign 3, Episode 19, Omens Above. An episode that when they posted didn't have a title. And there was some speculation I saw that, is this a new trend? Is we just getting episode numbers? Take heart that they are human as well. That's sort of where my mind went. Fillers below, yeah. I did laugh because we were like, "Oh yeah, back-to-back heists. That'll be funny." Nope, not back-to-back heists. An aside, but it does sort of play into something I'm going to say that I was right about. Marisha joked about messaging Dorian about Imogen turning blue, and that maybe he has a nosebleed and doesn't know why. And on the four-sided discussion show, Marisha revealed that she was Vex's double. So I was happy that I was right about that. But back to the episode. We get lime tea, hot lime juice. If you haven't seen Blast from the Past, you should watch it. It's a great movie. But I can't remember his character's name. Christopher Walken's character liked Dr. Pepper hot. And that's sort of where my brain went with the hot lime juice. And I loved Marisha being like, does he have any enamel left? Because eating too much vinegar, lemons, limes will weaken your enamel. We learned, we get sort of the scene of the crime tour, where we show they came out of the trees, which is similar to what happened to Orem, and that they ran off into the jungle, south. And later in the episode, we learned that they took all of their bags, their materials, their research materials, which I think is an interesting note. Because it begs the question, what does Keyleth have? Or did Keyleth not have anything, and that's why they haven't come back? I mean, it's possible that they haven't bothered to go back because they lost all the people that they sent. But it's also possible that they got what they wanted to get, or killed who they were trying to kill, and it was Orem's husband. That's what I'm struggling with, trying to draw that distinction, because Orem hasn't relayed the details of the attack to the group. Only that they came out of the trees, and it was over quickly, and that Keyleth was basically the hero and saved everybody. he thinks, from his point of view, Keyleth seems to have been the yeah, exactly. It happened in minutes, and they were on the trail, and they are wiping out anyone who is looking for stuff, whatever that stuff is, which now Orem is. Which is why I don't think it's Keyleth, because it's personal for Imogen, and thus far in this campaign, all of the storylines have been personal to each character. So I think Orem's husband is the impetus behind that attack. I think he was the target. And the clue that we have is the moons on Orem's shoulder, that the moons were important. It has been presented to us that it was a cute sort of nickname convention, Big Moon, Little Moon. But I think there's more to it than that. No evidence, of course, but that's why we call this wild speculations. We get exposition on Ruin is Born and the multiverse. And we get some interesting world building stuff that I do wonder. I'm curious how deep into the weeds Matt has gone, because like you could go deep into the weeds when you're doing celestial stuff. You can make star charts and constellations and do all that stuff. Or if Matt has just sort of generalized in his mind, and the big ones are the moons that affect the planes around Exandria. We also get Plane Rider Rin. I think that's the name. Rin or Win mentioned. So I'm wondering if this campaign, for even the briefest moment, goes somewhere else. Rin, thank you, Rose. If they go to Kryn, or I'm blanking on the actual world name of Forgotten Realms. There, where they might go, or if that's one-shot territory and or campaign 4 stuff, where campaign 4 might end up being like Stargate, where they're just hopping from world to world. That would set up real nice with a guest star rotation that we've theorized they're experimenting with this campaign. So we'll see. There's theorizing, discussion about people that could teleport to the moons and teleporting there. And all I could think about was, yes, you could teleport to a moon, technically. because the moons are on the same plane of existence. So, yeah, you could technically, with the teleport spell, teleport to one of the moons. It's a one-way trip, probably, and I don't think you're coming back. Seeing as the evidence presented in this episode is that Katha has no atmosphere whatsoever, and seems to be depicted very much like Luna, our moon. And Ruidus, my brain started trying to go through all the different permutations, and some of the stuff that Estani talked about, how Ruidus was not native or messed with their things, and how in previous campaigns we've had discussions that it's a plot by the betrayer gods to bring destruction. I started trying to think of how, I don't know, the orbital mechanics still I don't quite understand, but the revelation that Ruidus has an atmosphere would indicate that it is further away. Like way, way far, because it has to be the size of Mars, at least, to have an atmosphere. And for it to be smaller than their moon, which seems to be about the same size as our moon, I think. I don't think Matt has indicated that it's bigger. It's close, but not that close. Or it's possible that Ruidus is a gas giant and Exandria is a moon that has its own moon. It's probably not that, but it's technically possible. Yeah, so like for it to be like that case, like it would have to be like probably 10 times the orbit distance of Ganymede from Jupiter, at least. So unlikely that it would have a satellite that far out. But interesting to ponder. But with an atmosphere, maybe one could survive there if you teleported. I don't think so, but I mean, anything's possible with magic anyway. Fern immediately wants to steal the telescope before seeing it, and I think even after seeing it, she was disappointed that it was as big as it was. And I think she'll probably try to take something from him anyway. And you could tell, like, the group dynamics are beginning to form, where people begin to, like, try. Everyone's now is like, no, No. Uh, he's dying. He doesn't need it. Which was another funny moment when Marisha is like I think I don't know why she's doing that now in this campaign, but it's like every old person. She's like, wait, how close to death are they? And I don't know if that's just because of her headspace when she's playing Laudna. Um, and like these old people would be about how old she would be almost at their meeting if she had lived. So that might enter into her calculus, or because she's undead and deals with death and undying stuff, that just is in her mind. But I was reminded of a movie. Fried Green Tomatoes, I think, where the line is something along the lines of, "I'm dying," and the person freaks out. So you have to understand, when someone of my age says that, it's just an acknowledgement of the inevitable. So that's sort of where my brain went when she was freaking out. No, this guy is old. He knows his time's coming, so it's just a fact. Young people usually don't think about how close they are to death. We get some discussion about Imogen being cursed with the blue skin, which I thought was an interesting way to frame it, and hints at some of the negative connotations around sorcerers. And I think Matt may be, with Laura's permission, of course, leaning into the X-Men view of sorcerers. That when their powers manifest, bad things happen. And with wild magic sorcerers, bad things happen a lot. Bad, weird things happen a lot. So, and rune child sorcerers are hunted for their ritual power that they can give to rituals, which is in the lore of Exandria. So I think they're going to play into that more in this campaign, that they didn't really do in campaign 1 while Tiberius was on the show. So that's interesting. And they speculate whether or not Imogen is Ruidus born. She says she doesn't think so, but her mom might have been. And I think that's largely denial on her part. I think what we've been shown thus far is that Imogen is much like her mother, and I compared her to Eleven, and Eleven's mother. But after they go to the scene of the crime, Taliesin decides, I'm going to look into this ever-flowing jug of water. Puts his hand in, and it's cold and wet. Tries to put his hammer in. It won't go past the head of the hammer. So then they're like, well, what can we put in there to try to see how deep it is? I don't know I don't know if Matt was trying to bait a trap or what, but like, I think I would have asked for a strength check for him to push through, for him to just to go in. I don't know. It seemed too easy. And yeah, Rose, you could say he got them sidetracked, but at the same time, I think he was, well, if they left here magically, that seems to be a magic fountain. Let's check it out. I don't think it was that big of a sidetrack. I mean, it was, but yeah, I don't. But interestingly, we discover through Fern's spelunking as a frog that this was another portal to the water plane, and a freshwater portion of the water plane. And Matt added an interesting detail that I really appreciated. And it's freshwater, which is less dense than salt water, so it would be near the top. But as a means of refreshing that fresh water, he describes cold currents, so ice is melting and coming off, which means the portion of the water plane that she was in was probably close to the boundary between water and air. So I don't know if that will be important later. It may not. I don't know exactly how extraplanar campaign 3 is going to be. So I don't know if we'll ever get an answer. I was trying to think of what the bright eyes would be. And the flavor of the water changing, which I think was Matt's way to get them to move along. Like, this is not the clue you're looking for. Indicates it's something that changes the water around it. And the first thing, and it's because, and I don't know if it's because I'm biased, but I was like, aboleth? I mean, we joked about it all campaign 2 of seeing one eventually. And like, I was like, no, it's not an aboleth. And I was like, it could be some kind of giant eel. Because eels get kind of slimy too. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah. But she gets out, and we avoid the death of Fern. Although when they go shopping, they buy fishing gear, and it's not to fish in any stream. They're gonna make their way back roads, so don't be so disappointed about them not investigating it, because we're going back. And I hope Matt has a plan. But that's between 1 and 3 episodes away, depending on how long the heist goes. Which, if there's combat, could take a while. It could take 2 episodes. I don't think it will, but it's possible. poor Orem also, with when Talison's like, if only we had that rope, and Liam's like, or the coin. Man. He's lost so many magic items. Chetney, I loved Travis's. Yeah. The interaction between Taliesin was on fire this episode. And I almost want to make him my MVP, but there may be a better argument for Sam. But yeah, Taliesin was on fire. But Travis is like, when Imogen's asking Orem about the Ashari and his tattoo, and she starts probing around, what do the Ashari know, trying to get him to give us the information that he's holding back. That was great. I loved it. Which leads us into the shopping section of the episode. And one of the reasons why I want to give Taliesin MVP. Because yes, he did kind of derail them a little bit with investigating the statue, the fountain. But I think you have to do that when you have evidence that your attackers are extraplanar. Well, that's creating water. Maybe that's a planar thing. So I don't think it's that much of a sidetrack. But he tries to keep everybody together because I think one of the things that is driving Taliesin a little crazy with their shopping is that they break up and people inevitably want input on what's happening, and we saw that. But also, you only have one DM. The DM can't split into 3 people to handle 3 different groups. Whether you're going to 3 different places at once, or you all go together, 1, then 2, then 3, the same amount of time at the table is going to happen. And I think he would just rather keep everybody together. I don't know. But him trying to keep everyone together is like, we can just do that. Yeah. Exactly, Rose. So yeah, that's one of the things that like Taliesin moved up on my MVP. Is trying to keep everybody together so we can do this all at once, and no one has to, get left behind or anything. Oh, and the Piton discussion had again. And then, of course, I'm skipping ahead in the episode, but the best part about the shopping thing is the other group already sniped all their buys. And I do wonder if they got a bulk discount that Matt and his players, that Matt's players are so oft trying to get, and his merchants give them. I do wonder if he gave them a bulk discount, because we see why. As a merchant, you don't give bulk discounts. You'll give discounts on stuff that isn't moving. But yeah. And yeah, the rival mechanic is definitely showing up for sure. Although I worry because like Chetney, Fern, and kind of Laudna are all murder hobo for that other group. Every one of them at some point in the episode is talking about, but can we kill them? Or should we kill them before we start? Like, that's what the whole where are they sleeping thing happened. And the fact that they believe that this other group is going to kill them. Well, Russia said they feared the Ukraine would use chemical weapons. And all of a sudden, now we've got chemical weapons. Anyway. I loved the speaking of Travis being hilarious, when Matt's talking about the limes. And a lot of people asking about limes. And Travis just straight up hanging a lampshade. This is the new chair. Why are people getting so many limes? I think until the reveal that the other party bought all of the good magic stuff, that was the best part of the shopping for me. But they get limes, fishing gear, healer's kits, gloves, and a shovel. Which, if memory serves, I didn't double check this before coming during my show prep, but I'm pretty sure in the player's handbook a shovel is a gold. I could be wrong, but I think it's a gold, and so is a pick, I think. But anyway, that's not important, other than the fact that I think Fern would have paid anything for the shovel. And I don't know if we're ever going to get to the bottom of this fascination that she has with things. We probably won't. Or it could just be that this is how she feels Faye act. And we have lots of examples of that in literature, so it's not unfounded. But yeah. Also, the one that doesn't carry money and the one who has no money are the ones who go shopping for healthcare. Just makes me, it tickles me. We get a Tanglefoot bag, which is a Pathfinder item that Matt has ported into Exandria in the past. Veth purchased one or two. And I don't remember if she ever actually used the Tangle bag or not. I think she did. She used one, I think. But yeah, a fun item. We'll see if it is their best buy and if they get any use out of it. I don't know. Because the thing is, I don't know if they will actually interact with the other team very much. Also, I'm predicting that they will find something. Matt will be describing something, and it will be a Vox Machina artifact. Because the guy said that he was in Amon around the time that the Chroma Conclave attacked. And that he's been collecting things since. So, I think that they're gonna just see something and go, that's from Vox Machina. They're gonna want it, and they're gonna try to steal that, and that will delay them. Snoopy Ace the Lightning Javelin. Yes! That Grog threw out of the tower when they were fighting to impress Jim on Sword. It's very possible. Yeah. And what I think Abria used Blades in the Dark mechanics for Exandria Unlimited. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if Matt used something like that, or the actual rival mechanics, because if memory serves, there's a tracking progress mechanic in there. When the rivals get something better, or in the race, this mechanic. And I think it will come down to some dice rolls behind the scenes, whether or not they're progressing or not. So yeah, we get Ultgar, which causes Travis to get murderous, and that Ultgar screwed over this woman as well. So I'm looking forward to that interaction. And Chetney said he would go back. So win or lose the heist, I think we're going back to the statue, and Chetney is going to the woodworker. He got real sensitive about them buying Laudna, essentially what he is making her, and what she specifically asked for. So that will be interesting if he does. But we get oh yeah, Rose. He's definitely I think he definitely is making things, or has commissioned them. Like we talked about this before. Yeah, he definitely had something in the works for her. Although specifically what she had asked for was a rat, another puppet rat girlfriend. So it might still be that. So yeah. Yeah, not exactly, not just imaginary throwing out. It's his commission be for nothing exactly. Well, for nothing. I guess they can hang it up at home. Which would be funny in a different way. But Astani's observatory, when they go back after sunset, and Imogen sees her storms. And I thought a funnier way to interpret her 7 on the dice would have been that she is so interested in seeing this and having never used a telescope before, she just pushed her eye too strongly into the viewport. Because when you do that, like on either a telescope or a microscope, it basically closes your eyelid. So I think, like in my headcanon in that scene, before they sort of described and or made a joke about her needing glasses, and the fan art putting her in glasses, was that she just pushed her eye too hard on the viewer. We discussed that Imogen doesn't want to talk to her dad, or that she doesn't think he wants to talk to her. Where last episode, or last 2 episode before that, that she seemed open to the idea of going back to see her father. And this one, she took a step back and was like, no. Yeah, I guess technically they were close to not getting the information, but I don't know, like, I don't think it was information that was necessary, if that makes sense. Like, it was revelatory for Imogen to see, as she said, to see the storms when I'm awake. Is what sort of really affected her about that. And it also made her ask the question, are my dreams connected to Ruidus in any way? And she rolls, and Matt says, they do seem to come in cycles, and the cycles are about the same as Ruidus, so yeah, maybe. I loved Fern standing, because the way she said it, standing over Imogen, staring at her, or watching her. And also, her hand has to go in the pocket. Which leads us into Imogen's dream, where she confronts the storm, calls out for her mother. Mother says, run. And Matt having to clarify, Imogen asked her mother, did you run? No answer. And when she says, I walk, and Matt has to clarify toward the house, or she's like, no, into the storm. Okay. She sees a figure, which becomes 3, which becomes 5. And she begins to see, essentially, like my brain went to like a dark Avatar scene, when either Aang sees Roku with Kyoshi and Korok behind her, or when Korra sees Aang with Roku and Kyoshi in the second row, in just that triangle of people. I don't know if that's on purpose, but I don't know. That's where my brain went. She doesn't get any sort of mental feel from them, that they're not really there, Matt says. And when she wakes up and they're asking her about it, Imogen says it felt malevolent. Fern checks her markings and rolls a 24. And Matt says they've grown. And Fern trying to lie and like sugarcoat it is so good, and then immediately like, no, that's not true. They grew. And great moment at the table of an excellent example of cooperative storytelling and stuff that doesn't happen necessarily beforehand. But when Laudna asks, have I noticed them growing in the 2.5 years that I've been with her? And Matt turns to Laura and he says, what do you think? That's one of those moments where, like, as the DM, you have an idea based on the backstory and whatnot and stuff like that. What the answer that's going to be, but just so that the player has ownership of it, you toss it to them. And if they say something that contradicts you, you can sort of back your way into making it make sense. But Laura says, no, I think they've been growing. Yeah. And Matt just sort of nods. And he clarifies to Marisha, it's not something you notice like day to day or whatever, but like in a comparative fashion. Like looking back over the years, yeah, maybe when you first met her, thinking about it, looking now, they're more extensive. Was great. And I've had moments like that too. And also, occasionally I'll check in with a player when I'm about to run a scene with someone from their backstory. Just to double check that what I'm going to do, what I have in mind, makes sense. Or sometimes it happens after. But and sort of double check that what I did was not in contradiction with what they thought of. Just because not every NPC that your players give you in their backstory, even if it's a close friend or relation, is their personality or the specifics of their relationship fleshed out. Usually you get, the highlights. Who this person is, maybe how they met, the strength of the bond, and sort of there's a lot of stuff that's amorphous that gives you space to play in. And I think that's more freeing at the table, largely because you can, at that point, make it that, make the interaction more relevant to what's happening and connect it to the backstory in a more cohesive way. Whereas if there was solid stuff where so much more was etched in stone, you don't have enough play sometimes to get it to hit home, to land hard. Unless it's a long, like, you plan for this NPC to be important and you have much more in-depth planned out. But yeah. I don't remember if it was Liam or Taliesin jokingly laughing asked, did Fern take anything? And Ashley laughing says no, which I thought was interesting. And I think Fern was reaching into her bag so that she could maybe try to touch the stone, so that she could probably be a part of the dream. I think that's what Ashley was going for. Because Laudna and Imogen talked about, that having the stone was new in the dream as well as out. So I think she was trying to put herself into the dream. I don't know if that would have worked. It's an interesting step on the let's all share consciousness and have a dream adventure together. But to make Imogen feel better and to pass their watch, Laudna gives a burlesque puppet show. Yeah, exactly, Rose. They get their rest, and Matt's telling them to, prepare their spells. I love Taliesin. Well, I got some spells to prepare. And I was just thinking, I cast Hammer. I cast Hammer to the face. But Ashley and Travis, Travis freaks out. He's like, what else you got in there? Talking about the druid spell list. And Ashley's like, I'd like to know too. It's like, I don't know. Because yes, they have many things. Because like, pass without trace and guidance. Yes. We get the pitch. Confirmed it's the other team. Is the other team. And Sam looks and says, what do they have? Hammer to the face. A better one-trick spell than the Eldritch Blast. Indeed. Indeed. We get a description of the weapons of the opponents. And Hitch, rapier, daggers, light crossbow, or hand crossbow. Anyway, rogue, for sure rogue. Katari, 2 short swords. Possibly a rogue, but I think more likely a ranger for that pass without trace. Human, no armor, big hammer, barbarian. And then the Firbolg, no weapons. So I was like, caster. And he didn't ask to see if there was any component pouches or anything that could be a focus of any kind. So can't nail it down. And we assumed druid because Firbolg. They think wizard possibly. Maybe. But it could be a cleric. Druid and cleric fill the same role in the team. A druid is possibly more equipped for infiltration for a roguish team. Yeah, if he had, it would have been the best play. Yeah. And I think Matt's filling the roles. So yeah. I think the heist is going to be a clusterfuck. I think is the kindest descriptor I can give. So yeah, I think we will see the timer. I think we will see the timer, and that may be how Matt determines how fast the other team is progressing. Every time he's got to turn it, they get a point. Turn, point, turn, point, turn, point. And then he just tallies up how many points they got. That might be how he does it. We'll see. But we got some big reveals and signposts to where we're going. We're going to the Omen archive to speak to Professor Khadija Sumal in Eos, beyond the Hellcatch Valley. So, Orem and Laudna's, or Imogen's stories takes a back seat so that FCG's story can come to the fore. Oh, the guy's room being in a pocket dimension. Yeah, very possible. That would certainly make sense. And yeah, see, it's a toss-up for me between Sam and Taliesin for MVP. Like, the story of the episode was very centered on Imogen and sort of Orem, but I don't feel like they really pushed anything forward, if that makes sense. And Sam did some good things in the shopping portion and a few things with the professor, but the big thing was at the end, trying to get the information about what these people might be able to do. But Taliesin, I think, overall through the whole episode, was the one, hitting all the gears. But yeah, I think I probably have to give it to Taliesin. Even though Sam's last, like, when he was in the shop asking about the other people, what they bought, and trying to identify what they might be, were powerful. But arguably too little, too late, maybe. I don't know. But either way, we'll have the heist on Thursday for sure now, as we got the kickoff in this episode. And we will be back here discussing it next Tuesday. Hopefully both of us will be here. And it's real sad because I kind of want to embarrass Scott on his birthday. Have you guys wish him happy birthday. So he's not here, so maybe next week. We'll see you guys then.